Thank you, Shar, for such a warm introduction. And welcome everyone to What to Expect When Children Are Entering Elementary School. I am Marsha Hibbert, and I am the owner of Composed Therapy and Wellness. And I'm really excited to be here with you today to talk about ages and stages of development. So join me and let's begin. So who am I? I'm Marsha. That's me with the black hood there on. And my three boys. Obviously, I have four, and the teenager probably didn't want to come with us today. But this is my family. I'm a social worker that has extensive practice in child welfare, and I'm a parent educator. And basically, my whole idea is to help people to connect to one another through love and understanding and with empathy and non-judgmental. So that's who I am, and I love what I do. I own Composed Therapy and Wellness Incorporated. It's a psychotherapy practice in your region, and I work mostly with children, youth, and their families, focusing on parenting and really using the attachment theory. So today I'm really hoping that we can just dive into some wonderful ideas and thoughts to help you better connect with your children and better understand them. So what are we doing? So we're going to talk about attachment. We're going to talk about child development. We're going to look at the different domains of development. Then we're going to go into the ages and stages and talk about the middle childhood, adolescence, and teenagers. And then we're going to wrap it all up with parent survival techniques and strategies. And last, and of course not least, we're going to talk about how God has helped us as parents. Again, thank you, Christian Moms Toronto, for inviting me to speak today. So let's start. Attachment and child development. Oops, sorry. So here we have attachment, and I feel that that's my main focus is attachment. And it's a co-created relationship between a child and a caregiver. Basically, this attachment is formed between mom and baby. I'll use that now. When they're born, when they come onto this earth, babies cry, and the moms respond to them. Babies give them a message, a signal of distress, like, oh, where, and mom says, what's going on? And tries to figure out what baby's trying to say. She might say, oh, you might need a bottle, or, oh, your diaper's wet. So once mom figures it out, she gives it back to baby and says, here, you need a bottle. Baby is calmed, baby feels safe, baby is regulated. So attachment is really, really critical. And I feel it's so necessary in parenting to understand the messages our kids are giving us, figure it out in our minds, and give it back to our children so that they can then regulate themselves, make sense of what's going on around them. And we will find that when kids have secure attachments, when parents really understand them and help them to regulate themselves, you're going to end up with children that are going to be able to have positive social relationships, regulate themselves, and this is going to walk them into a wonderful life as an adult that can relate to other people. You have to keep in mind there are 4 different styles of attachment. Secure is what I've mentioned, but anxious is for parents that are not really sure what to do with their kids, and the kids are getting this message from their parents. They're not really sure what's going on. So those kids look kind of worried when their parents are comforting them. Ambivalent and avoidant are parents that are kind of can't really cope with what's going on with their kids. So you'll see kids that are kind of going to their parents, but not sure they're really able to give them what they need. And disorganized attachment looks like a child that doesn't respond to anything. Like a parent could be trying everything, the child has no idea because they themselves, the child, don't feel anything from their parent. They can't respond to them or understand them. So this wonderful theory is from Mary Ainsworth and John Bowlby. Check them out. They're awesome. They totally know what they're talking about. I've left a link there for you to check out and just get your own understanding. So that, I think, is really important. Child development. What is it? Well, child development is a term used to describe physical, cognitive, and social emotional changes that take place in children and youth. As each milestone is achieved, the child or the individual moves from dependency to independence. And I think that's really important. What we're trying to do is have our children, build up our children, and have them move on out. because that's what we want. We want them to be able to be independent. We want them to move and be on their own. And that's our job as parents. So please keep in mind, some kids move faster and some are slower, and it's not their fault because it's biology. Development just comes when it comes. But as a parent, you have to just be there to support your child, to help them through it. One thing that I also really want to point out is the child's temperament. That is very important. Every child comes into this world with an easy, slow to warm up, or difficult kind of temperament. You also have to know as a parent where you stand in your temperament, because if you're difficult and your child's easy, that sometimes causes conflict. So really getting a hold on understanding that is also very important when we talk about child development. Again, I've listed a couple of websites you could check out, and the text that I've studied from is listed also there to give you some good information on the things we're going to talk about. So quickly, positive attachment, it helps regulate your children, helps them feel safe, teaches them how to relate to others. And understanding temperament helps us to better support our children through their transitions. And ultimately, being there for your child, being focused on them, listening to them, will definitely help as you tolerate, as they go through difficult behaviors and difficult challenges. So let's look at the different types, the different domains of development. There are 7 domains of development. There's a perceptual cognitive development, and that's the construction of thought processes, including memory, problem solving, decision making, things like that. Moral development is knowing the difference between right and wrong, understanding when to make the right choice. Growth and physical development is an increase in physical growth, height, weight, just how children grow. Social-emotional is basically how our children branch out. How do they create other social relationships? You know, how do they express themselves within groups? And really, you know, how do they find themselves out in the world? Creative is more through imagination, dexterity, and play. You'd be surprised. Children have great, healthy brain development through play. And speech and language, how do our kids communicate to us? How do they make sounds? You know, how are they going to be able to use their communication in the future? And self-development is just about self-esteem, their identity, and self-concept. So these are the main domains of development. But I think you all would probably never leave this webinar if I were to go through all of them for these stages. So I'm really just going to talk about 3. I'm going to talk about the perceptual cognitive development. I'm going to talk about growth and physical, and I'm going to talk about social and emotional. So now that you have a little handle on what child development is and attachment, I really want you to carry that into our next wonderful piece. We're going right now into it. Yes, we're going into it. We're going to start talking about those ages and stages. Middle childhood, 6 to 8, is like using a blender without a lid. These kids are full of energy. They're affectionate, funny. They can't sit still if their life depended on it, and they have a million questions. It's important to keep these kids active and to keep them out and running because their physical development is really important. It's so good for them. Keep in mind your 6-year-olds, they're now entering formal school setting with excitement due to the changes in their cognitive abilities. They're now able to understand rules and how rules relate to themselves and to others. And they're able to organize their minds a little bit more. The 7-year-olds, they're individuals who are starting to take themselves a little bit more seriously, becoming frustrated with themselves at times, but they're now able to reason and they're able to cooperate a little bit more, willing to share. However, it's very interesting because 7-year-olds start to worry. It's really weird. They start to worry about things like thunderstorms and things like that. I think because they have this new understanding, they start to have new worries. And 8-year-olds, well, they're full of life, very enthusiastic about life, eager for their independence, still cleaving to their parents, but they're devoted to their friends, teachers, and their families. Really wonderful set of people. So let's talk about them. We're going to talk about our 6-year-olds, 7s, and 8s. And we're going to talk about their cognitive abilities. So 6-year-olds, their attention spans have increased. They're able to sit for longer periods, not always, but they can. They can get simple time markers and a concept of motion. So these kids are able to say, oh, tomorrow we're going to be doing this, or Santa Claus is coming on that day, or yay, it's going to be Christmas. You can start really good conversations with them now. They should be recognizing sight words and attempting to stand out words. So some kids can read now and some can't. And what's interesting too is they have a limited understanding of death. They think it's reversible because their mind hasn't really gotten that complex concept yet. But they also believe that they could have caused it, which is really sad. And they worry a lot about their parents at this time, about their parents dying. 7-year-olds, again, they have a little bit more of an understanding of space and time. Yeah, years long, 100 miles is far away. And again, they also are starting to understand cause and effect. I'm going to be late for school. Again, if I get late, I'm dead. I'm in trouble. Reversing letters and substituting sounds doesn't mean a learning disability, but it just means that they're on the right path. And our 8-year-olds, well, they're awesome. Apparently, they're accepting challenges, responsibilities, delight in being asked and being rewarded. They like to work independently. Sometimes you'll see them sitting around and writing, making lists and all that sort of stuff, taking inventory. But what's really beautiful is that they're starting to think about other countries, other places in the world, and understanding different opinions and cultures. So that's their cognitive piece. Socially, we can see that these kids, all of these children are starting to move closely towards their friends. This is the big thing for them. Friendship is starting to come into play. But we're seeing that their 6-year-olds are still craving the attention of their parents, reassurance. They need some praise, anxious to please. But, if they get a scraped knee, the world is coming apart. It's still minor things are trying to gain attention. They're easily disappointed and frustrated, and they have, at themselves. They are still fibbing and trying to cheat on games and things like that. And they're also, as I mentioned before, becoming fearful of thunderstorms, the dark, things like that, and have some mood swings and friends with somebody 1 minute and the next they aren't. 7-year-olds, again, very cooperative, less annoyed at their parents, very humorous. They start to enjoy life a lot. Worries are more or less linked to their feelings being hurt or being embarrassed. And they're starting to develop empathy for others' feelings and such. And they get to take responsibility for things, doing some tasks around the house with little directives. But it's nice because they have this sense of responsibility. 8-year-olds, they tend to just want to spend some time alone and have their own privacy. So this is where you're like, oh, let me help you. Do you need help in the shower? And they're like, no, I don't need you. And they slam the door in your face. And you're like, really? Where'd that come from? Yeah, they're 8. This age, they're also very loyal to their parents. So you'll see 8-year-olds are usually the ones saying, whatever you want, mom, dad, auntie, whatever. They're just really, really good sports for the most part. But don't be surprised if they blame you. They're going to still blame you for stuff. They still don't want to look like the bad guy. But they like to seek approval and join with friends. And then lastly here, we're going to talk about growth and physical development. Well, they're getting more control. These 6-year-olds are getting more control over their large and fine motor skills. They're moving constantly, losing teeth, and they just have so much energy. That goes for us 7-year-olds. Lots of movement. That's why I think it's so important that when you're dealing with this age group, please take them outside. Anytime you're starting to grow hair on your eyeballs, throw them outside, put the snowsuit on, take them skating, take them whatever you want. Just keep them out because they need that excellent activity to keep the physical body going and getting strong, because now you're 7 and they're starting to look like little adults. It's kind of weird, but that's what's happening. And again, 8 years old, love these guys. Video games are, they're masters at it because their hand-eye coordination is amazing. But this is a time that you're going to start seeing your kids standing way at the top of the jungle gym saying, hey guys, look at me, and jumping off. So they're fearless. It's a fearless group of people. Like I said, using a blender without a lid. Okay, so let's move on to the next wonderful stage here is adolescence. 9 to 12 is like riding an emotional roller coaster. So at this stage, our 9 and 12-year-olds are known as tweens, as their pre-puberty stage. For the most part, it's quiet before the storm. And these children experience highs and lows, mostly at like 9 at the onset of the puberty. But gradually around 10 and 11, they start to taper off and they're more reasonable and seem to, enjoy themselves a little bit more. They love their family. They still consider their home a place of safety and comfort. Schools enjoy, like they love school. Missing school, critical. They don't want that. They want to be at school because everything's going on there. They don't want to lose out on that. These people are very fun-loving, very curious, helpful, happy. They feel invincible at this point because really it's a great time of life for them. So our 12-year-olds and 11-year-olds, they're starting to feel good too. And their language, like these are the times that these kids are talking to you and you think they're adults, but they're not adults because they don't have enough experience. But they're starting to get language and motor and cognitive skills that are reaching adult level and sophistication. Their emotions have kind of evened out, and there's less conflict in the home, and they're more willing to help out at home. So let's look at them quick. Here they are cognitively. These guys learn the best with their hands and enjoying hands-on experiences. So parents out there, give them some science projects, give them all sorts of fun things at this age. Make them make some bread, do something like that, because they love to learn with their hands. They're also understanding that learning more from their experience. So if I hurry to walk the dog, I will have more time to play with my friends. 11 and 12-year-olds, well, they're beginning to have more abstract terms and thoughts, and their memory is enabling them to have more long-term recall. They accept the idea that problems can have multiple solutions, and they're very thoughtful listeners. The social emotional for this lovely age group for 9 and 10, this is where all the sleepovers are starting to take place. They're seeking out their friends, finding really common interests. And again, here's where the frenemies thing happens. Friends today, not tomorrow. Beginning to have more moral reasoning and honesty from right and wrong, but they still rely on their parents to help them sort things out. And they're not hitting each other, thank goodness. But they take criticism, like if you try to tell them something, they take it personally. Their ego is still very fragile and they're very self-conscious. So just tread lightly with them. 11 and 12, yes, they're very conscious now, very self-conscious, very self-focused. But they understand that to take responsibility for their own behaviors and consequences and choices. They handle the frustrations with fewer emotional outbursts. And what's really nice is that they're able to express themselves emotionally. So as I mentioned before, when we talked about attachment, that's also a place where parents are teaching their children their emotional regulation, right? But they're also teaching their kids about emotions. So if parents really work with that beautiful attachment theory along and really relate to their children, stay attuned to them, you'll notice that at this time, you'll hear some really awesome stuff about how kids can express themselves. And, they have some really great facial features that go along with it. Funny, I had a young girl that I used to babysit when I was younger. And she was perfect for this because every time she got mad, she'd go, grr, at this age. It was so weird, but it was funny because her facial expression really matched how she was feeling. So look out for that when you see your 11 and 12-year-olds. They recognize the loyalty, honesty, and trustworthiness, and being a considerate listener are prerequisites for being a good friend. So now they're going to want to spend more time with their peers and their family. But I really like that. I like that they're starting to pay attention to what makes a good friend. Also, growth and physical development. Get this. Our 9 and 10-year-olds, their brains are almost the size of an adult brain. Can you believe that? By the time they're at 10, they will have an adult brain in their head. Not enough experience, but an adult brain. They still got the baby teeth, but they got an adult brain. They're beginning to have early signs of pre-puberty, adult brain. And they're growing like weeds. And then look at this. Our 11 and 12-year-olds, they triple their birth length. Remember, they were so tiny on our hands. Now they're triple their birth weight by the end of the period. And girls are first to experience the puberty growth spurt, and bodily changes of menstruation may start or have started or may start now. And boys' puberty and spontaneous erection, surprise, this all is going on in your kids' bodies. They're going bananas. Can you imagine what this must be like for them? Everything's raging in there. So, just be gentle with them. It's hard, but try. So we've got these kids with all this emotion. Take them outside, keep them running, take them to the trampoline park, do whatever you have to do at this age and stage. Just keep them going, keep them out there. So here we are. We're at our 12 and 13 to 16-year-olds. It's like getting stuck in a revolving door because these guys, they want to be independent, but they want you, and they're crying, but they're yelling at you. Really, really like, where are we going with the door, guys? Are we going in? Are we going out? Are the blinds up? Or are they down? Huh? So here we go. We got our 13-year-olds. They're entering junior high. They're starting the process again of fitting in, just like when they were 6 years old. And they're faced with a lot of new uncertainties. Plus the body's going bananas, right? And they're experiencing all these physical changes, voice changes for boys, menstruation for girls, and acne for both. These are basically things that help, like, kind of hinder the children a bit, because then they become insecure about their bodies and it affects their self-esteem, and they kind of lose confidence. Funny story, I had a friend and he was going through puberty. Could you believe that he did not talk? He did not talk. Every time we went out with him for a year or two, man did not talk because his voice was changing. So that's a perfect example of how self-esteem and how worrisome kids get about it. Really, really be gentle, because it's very hard. At 14 years old, they regain their confidence again, and they're better emotional control. And you're going to start to see that there's some maturity coming, because now they're starting to get some more interest in civic responsibilities and community service, like really trying to reach out to the world, understanding there's a bigger world. And 15 and 16 years old, they become more indifferent and rebellious to gain independence. Like here, they're really doing a lot of pushback. Friends are gradually replacing their family, and it's a source of comfort and security. And at home, these children usually spend a lot of time alone with their electronics, with their friends, or they stay out a lot. With school, they're either really into it or they're disengaged. And I'm going to just tell you, be very gentle here too, because, you know, you want to set a standard for them, because we don't want them to be completely disengaged, but we still have to kind of meet them somewhere. So at this point, I would honestly just really encourage the school to rally around your child, or if there's anyone at your community or church or synagogue or whatever, just really have them help them out at this point. It's a very, very gentle, delicate time. And our 16-year-olds, well, they often develop a new sense of self-confidence, respect, and emotional control. Friends, again, are very important. And sexuality is established. But again, for this age, it's so much stuff is going on physically, hormonally. It's very confusing. So again, it's important that your kids can come and talk to you about these things and be supportive and just try to be non-judgmental, because there's so much happening and it makes no sense. So again, if there's other people that can rally around your kids, if it's too difficult or whatever, please, take that time. And they're able to understand now. Yeah, the 16-year-olds, they're able to talk to you without yelling at you. It's so good. All right, so here we are cognitively for our 13, 14-year-olds. They're being able to analyze problems from multiple perspectives. Finally, because, they always know they're right, but now they can actually think about something somebody else has to say. And they can think abstractly. This is great. So we can actually start to give them examples and they will actually listen to us. But remember, they don't have much experience. So it still will be a little bit of a struggle, but they'll be able to get it. And then they're going to be spending a little bit more time in self-reflection. So here I would say is, as parents, really spend some time giving them good words, be positive, tell them good things, so that when they do go back to self-reflect, try not to be too critical, but when they go back to reflect upon themselves and get some insight on how they're feeling or their self-esteem or whatever, they still have some good information from their parents to support them. 15 and 16s, yeah, they're solving things with deductive thinking. Sounds really big, eh? They're just hypothesizing. They're just like, oh yeah, I think that what if I did this, maybe this, and that's good, because the scientific reasoning and solving complex issues combined with logic, they come up with a solution and outcome on their own, which is really great. And again, they're aware of their larger world, and they can focus their attention on more than one activity. So this is when you see your teenager standing in the kitchen with the phone in their ear, with doing their macaroni and cheese, and they got some clothes and laundry. This is what's happening. They're able to capture more. Socially, again, our 13 and 14-year-olds are starting to get a more of a right and wrong perspective, stronger understanding. Again, embarrassed by us as parents. I know, sad times, right? But they're spending more times with their friends and they want to fit in so bad. Again, there's this egocentrism kind of rears around this time with their imaginary audience. They're always comparing themselves to the Kardashians or the Joneses or whatever, but they've got this imaginary audience where they try to mimic images of others. So maybe mom, dad, whoever, put on some nice outfits. Let the kids use you as an image to mimic, right? And then also they have a stronger sense of identity, which is where my revolving door comes in. Sometimes they're confident, sometimes they're not. I'm great, I'm not great. Just be their parents. Just stay steady like a rock. Be that attachment focused parent. And then finally, 15s and 16s, they're really wanting to be on their own. They really want to have their way, start talking about their independence away from their family. Like our oldest one, he was saying, yeah, I don't have to live here. And we said, yeah, I get it. But would you really want to live on your own? No. They want that idea, but they can't really, feel it yet. So talk to them about it, what's it going to look like if you're on your own, man? Like, how's that going to go for you? But they're more cooperative, more responsible. Yes, they're temperamental and moody, revolving door. But that's also about because they want so much to be independent. And growth and development, head size, and their facial features are like adults, but their gangly little bodies keep them reminding us that they're not adults yet. Rapid growth for boys and girls, and they've ultimately reached their adult height by this time. Girls at 15 and 16 are at their adult height. Boys are usually at their height by 16, 17. And they've continued to undergo the gradual body changes associated with puberty, but it's coming to an end. They get tired easily, but they should be a part of that vigorous activity. Like I said, get them outdoors, get them hiking, camping, whatever you can do. Wisdom teeth are coming, and more precise hand and eye coordination for all those games. Survival. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what we do to survive with these kids. Well, we definitely have to talk about understanding ourselves and our parenting styles from our family origin. So if you know how your parents parented you, that's going to give you a little bit of an idea of how you will parent. And just keep that in mind and reflect on the attachment ideas. Understanding yourself and self-care. When was the last time you ate? When was the last time you showered? Think of these things because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to get anywhere. And then the last is next point is about having support from those around you. Is your husband supportive? Is your wife supportive? Is your spouse, grandparents? Who's there for you? Who can help you? Who can you rely on? And don't be afraid to ask for help. That was one of my weaknesses. I didn't really ask for help much. And that kind of wasn't so great. But asking for help can really relieve you. And also, have some knowledge about what you're facing. You really need to be, real with yourself. If you've got a child that is punching people at school, you got to come to terms with that. Find out what's going on with them and really get to the bottom of it so that you can really deal with it. Because if we don't deal with it, we're in big trouble. So where do we go from here? Well, God. See, Christian Moms Toronto called me and asked me to talk about this. And when I look at all those things that we talked about, every element, I'm pretty sure you heard me weave in words like patience and tolerance and love and compassion, and that's God. God is the answer to parenting, people. He has given us these wonderful tools that are within us that we just have to conjure up. And ways we can do that is by prayer. Prayer, devotions, Bible studies, things like that. Those are the things that teach us to focus on Him, focus on the good things, and really that will give us more attention on our children. So I've really selected Galatians 5, verse 22 to 23, because I feel that we need to focus on these fruits. If we can eat these fruits and if we can bear these fruits, we will have wonderful, wonderful experiences parenting our children. So it says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. So, hey, there's nothing wrong with these things, so just do them if you can. But you really need to think about making sure you're taking care of yourself so that you can listen to God and you can access these fruit so you don't end up in trouble, if that makes any sense. So think about that, and please consider, Bible studies or whatever, or parenting groups even, like Christian Moms Toronto. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or anything, but I just want to add one more thing quickly. just tiny, tiny little bit. I know I talk a lot, but little basic survival tips for your children. And this goes for all ages. Breathe. Always breathe. When you're stressed out, when they're driving you bananas, breathe. Breathe in, out. Teach your children to breathe. And that, there's lots of websites and lots of YouTube videos on how to teach them a special breathing where they go, that thing, I don't know what it's called right now, but it can help your children get out that air and refresh. Maintaining eye contact with your children, getting their face, getting down at their level, so important. Even when they're teenagers, get into their level, whatever you got to do so that you can connect. That's a part of my attachment piece, connecting, so that they can hear you. Think before you speak, as I said, because the words have to be careful. You have to be gentle. You got to use kind words. Always give commands, but really short commands. Go get your shoes. Shoes. That's it. Make sure the children receive that. What are you going to get? I'm going to get my shoes. Are you going to get your shoes? Yes. Once you get confirmation that they've actually got adjusted what you've told them, you'll have more time. That'll work out for you. Listen to them. Let them express their thoughts and validate them. And with your teens, when they're driving bananas, you may not even want to see them half the time. Please take them to a movie. Just be their friend. Just be with them because they really want that, but they don't want to tell you that. So those are the tips that have helped me. So thank you, Christian Moms Toronto. Thank you so much for inviting me to share my thoughts today. And I hope that people will come and check me out. My website's coming up soon, and I will be offering future webinars and seminars held by Composed Therapy and Wellness. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed or learned or able to take something away from this.